Hey everyone, welcome to another A Day in the Life of. Today we have a day in the life of a CEO, which for me it's very impressive because CEOs are extremely busy people. So thank you so much, Tiago, Bowen, and Nadia to join me today. My name is Mafalda. I'm running these episodes every week, so feel free to see the episodes before, the ones after. The goal here is to really understand how is the life of heads of department and in this case CEOs. So I will let Tiago introduce yourself to the
Thanks for
audience.
giving me the first position. Thank you. My name is Tiago. I'm the CEO of All In Global. We do provide language services to the iGaming industry, translations, content writing, some search engine optimization as well. We are based in Malta. We have an office in Porto, Portugal. This is where I am. I'm sitting from Portugal. We have most of our project management team in Portugal. We also have our marketing department, sales, quality assurance, and so on. So, in a really small nutshell, this is who I am.
Very beautiful country, I've heard.
Yes.
Nadia, you're also sitting in a very beautiful country. Let
Thank you, Mafalda. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Maltese. I'm Nadia. I reside in Malta at the moment, and I use Malta as my base, where I reach out to most of my clients, mostly in Europe as well as in the United States. At the moment, I'm running my own business, my own company, and again, related to the same theme that we are discussing today. So after my stint as a CEO of Centacom is an outsourcing BPO company dealing with some customer service as well as back office operations. That's where I decided to set up my own company to support the development of upcoming CEOs, as well as to support CEOs from a board perspective. So that's primarily what I do. I do a number of executive mentoring sessions to CEOs at the moment or aspiring CEOs, and I sit on board as a non-executive director, again supporting the executives to present strategic growth plans at board level. So I'm very interested to be here today to share insights and views with Bowen and Tiago and yourself, Mafalda, as well, because definitely the life of a CEO is anything but easy.
yeah, yeah. I
I
never
leave
been
it
a
at
CEO
that
in my
for the
life.
moment.
Yeah. I never been a CEO in my life. Not sure if I want to, but I was once executive assistant to a CEO, and Bowen is my direct report. So I work really closely with CEOs, and it's not easy. Bowen, introduce yourself.
So, hey, I'm Bowen. Hopefully, I'm the CEO of Wonderway, and hopefully, you know what Wonderway does, considering we're hosting the event. But yeah, we build data-driven sales training software proven to increase revenue per rep. I think, I guess something that's important to know about us is that we are a seed-stage company, so we've got about 20 employees, and we're fully remote. So, like many companies did when COVID arrived, we went remote. We decided to stick with it. So I think that also comes with its own set of challenges as a CEO managing a remote team. So yeah,
And
let's
you do
jump
a good
in.
job. Great. So, Tiago, let's start with you again. How is usually your day to day as a CEO?
Well, so I try to organize my days in a way that in the morning I have some meetings with different departments. So, and that would be like every day, usually a different one. I have my updates in the morning. So we plan the week ahead. And usually I try to have weekly calls. I mean, I try not to have meetings every day with everyone. Otherwise, there's just too much meetings, and people need to have their own time. But I think it's important to have at least a weekly catch up, define some objectives, some targets, and then weekly talk with the different departments. And that's the formal part of things, because then during the week, obviously, there's other unscheduled meetings and things that happen, and you need to be present and available. So my typical day would be mornings, try to catch up with everyone. I always try to have my own focus time in the afternoon. Actually, I shared this with you, Mafalda, before. Especially on Mondays and Tuesdays, I try to have at least 2 to 3 hours for myself. And I found it really important ever since I started doing this, because when I didn't have this in my calendar, the calendar was open. So I would have meeting requests from HR, from operations, from marketing, and then I would have to kind of juggle my own stuff around these meetings. So I kind of blocked the Mondays and Tuesdays afternoon, and that's kind of my own time where I have to focus on my own duties. So my day is kind of organized like this. I usually start at around 9 in the morning, and I finish at around 5 or 6, and that highly depends on the day. Sometimes a bit later, but sometimes I can also finish a bit earlier if I'm a bit more productive and the things happen a bit faster.
I agree that it's very juggling. Do you like to build on that, Nadia?
It's very interesting what Tiago is mentioning, because I remember my days as a CEO. I was like, okay, so how many meetings a day I'm going to run exactly, and how I'm going to structure them in a way that they make sense? Because you have a feeling, at least I had a feeling, that I was in meetings all the time. And if I didn't structure the purpose of the meetings, then it's like you never have enough time to do things, because obviously as a CEO, you are at the center of the company, depending on the trajectory of the company. So either you're doing a transformational process and changing different structures, culture, people, HR, then that requires certain type of energy and plans, much more than the day-to-day. If you're upkeeping the operation, so to speak, so it depends on really on the trajectory of the business. At that time, I was on a transformational process, so that really required quite a lot of changes, where you really need, I used to call them, maybe Tiago you remember, but it was alignment sessions, and they used to make fun of me, misalignment is coming. But it was an internal joke, and we used to align on operational stuff or weekly targets, and those were the short term. And then I used to make sure, at least when I really managed, the strategic ones as well, because I think the strategy needs to feed into the operation so that we don't lose sight of where we would like to be, for example, end of year. So by and large, however, having time, like Tiago mentioned, booking really time and slots where you really need to gain headspace, I think it's really critical within a CEO's life. For me, it used to work, for example, early morning, because that's where I'm the sharpest. That's where I like to focus, when I'm the most innovative. Late in the evening, I'm okay for a drink and to socialize, not to really think. So mornings worked for me, but it depends on the personality and the individual. However, blocking really time for yourself, and even not just to work, but also how important it is. I know we're listening a lot about work-life balance that doesn't really exist with CEOs, but if you really build it within the organization and within the structure, I think that really works.
Can you see my white beard, Nadia? I gained this over the past 4 years.
I'm sure Bowen can agree with you, right, Bowen?
Yeah, someone from our team the other day told me he was looking at recordings when I was doing the first sales calls for the team, and he's like, "You look so much younger." Even like 2 or 3 years ago, he's like, "You look completely different to what you do now." So yeah, I'm surprised he was so direct about that.
I never wanted to say that.
He doesn't work here anymore. Like,
yes, I still do.
No. Okay, so my turn. I think, my day sounds very similar to what you guys are talking about. I'm maybe more like Nadia, that I prefer to have time for myself in the morning. So I'm more productive in the morning, and then I schedule meetings in the afternoons. So I think in the afternoons is when I take my internal team meetings. Also, I prefer to do sales calls in the afternoon, things like that, because I think in the morning I'm much more focused, and in the afternoon focus is slipping. So it's a good time to be kind of like, when you schedule meetings, you're forced to be productive. It's the way that I look at it. But I think there's a good article from Peter Thiel years ago called about makers and managers time, and talking about how like it's something that my co-founder and I had to work out in the early days, that as a CEO, your calendar is more dictated by other people's needs, and whereas our CTO, he needs more like stretches of deep work to code and to focus. And I think my day has also changed over time. Like as an early stage startup, when I was doing everything myself, there was a lot of maker time, and now it's more like reactive and inbound, I would say.
I like when you mentioned like that your responsibilities changed over time. How would you, in a nutshell, what would you say that your main responsibilities are as a CEO, Bowen?
Yeah, so again, I think this has definitely changed a lot. At the beginning, I was doing everything myself. I think, at the beginning, I was doing everything myself, doing sales, doing marketing, customer service, product, admin, whatever. And I think over time, I've seen one of my main objectives is to replace myself in these processes. So, it was my responsibility to build out the sales process. And once we had something that was working, maybe not perfectly, but it was working well enough that we could document it and teach it to someone else, then I had our first sales rep, and then they would take over. Similar with marketing, ran the first experiments. When we had something that was repeatable, we hired someone. And I think that's sort of been the process of building out the company until now. And even still, I think if we launch a new project, then I still like to do that, like to kind of drive it myself. But more and more, then I'll maybe define the project and then ask someone else to take it. So I think, if you ask about what my responsibilities are, I think it's about working out the process and then maybe hiring people better than me to take over.
Interesting.
And I read somewhere that, success is kind of like, as a CEO, the less busy you are, then that's like, if you can get to a point where you're actually able to have time to think and have time to yourself, then I think that's successful. I haven't quite got there yet. But I think that was
It's a journey. It's a journey, Bowen.
Exactly. That's where I'd like to be in the future, is kind of giving yourself time to think about the strategy, things like that.
But it's true, actually. And over the past few years, I've seen that. I started in the company in business development. The company was much smaller than what it is now. Then eventually I was managing operations, and then I became the CEO of the company. I'm not one of the founders of the company. The company was founded before I joined. And I pretty much did everything. I did everything you can imagine in the company, from HR to project management to sales to marketing, operation, like everything. So I know the ins and outs of every department. I know all the functions. And I think that's important for my role right now, because I can relate to the challenges that everyone has. And I can build on that. And I think what you said, Bowen, about your objective of getting to a point where you have your own time, because you can rely on your team and everyone knows what they are doing. I think I'm getting there right now, and it's really good. Like when you can, I already trust my team for many years. Now I feel that people are getting autonomous, more self-sufficient. They just run things without asking every single detail, every single permission. Oh, can I do this? Can I do? No, they just take initiative. And I think that changed as well ever since we hired our head of innovation. He's a very he's very good, and he questions everything and everyone. And ever since we started questioning everything, people started having this innovative mindset. We actually at our office we have our name is All In. We say we are all innovators, and in our office, like in one of the walls, it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Like ever since we kind of started this spirit, my management team started taking so much more initiative, and I feel that there's less burden in me, and I have more time for myself, which is great.
One of our investors said this to me once. I think it was just when I was having a difficult day, probably, and he said, as the company gets bigger, the workload actually goes down. The pressure goes up because you've got more people looking to you. There's maybe more on the line. But once you build out a good team around you, then you should be able to delegate things. And actually, if you don't do it well, you should be able to reduce your workload. But the stress will always be there. The pressure goes up. But yeah.
I think what's interesting as well, Tiago, the fact that you mentioned, and even yourself, Bowen, the fact that once you once you onboard um, new people onto your team, direct reports, obviously depending on their competence, things will shift with the team naturally. Because then somehow, like for example, Tiago mentioned the innovation piece. And I think the more you elevate, obviously, and you do less micro and more macro, so to speak, in a nutshell, I think it really helps in elevating that space. But I have a question actually. Sorry, Mafalda, I don't want to sit in
I
your
love
chair,
it. I
but
love
to
it. Go
Tiago
ahead.
and to Bowen. Because this is interesting. Do you think that as CEOs, you would still be responsible for a big chunk of the growth of business development yourself?
Meaning
Since
Yeah.
direct sales or
even though it's more business development, what I see, it's new opportunities, new ideas, new markets, new target audiences, sort of that is still an integral part of a CEO's role, no matter of where the trajectory of the business is, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe I can. When this is in terms of KPIs, then this is like the number one thing. I mean,
I love
we're
it. That was my next question. So go ahead.
okay. Oh yeah, so I mean, we're a venture-backed startup, so we have investors and we have a board that we have to report to, and at this stage, it's just all about revenue growth. You know, I think everything else is just a function of that. We have targets we need to hit month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year, and that's basically my responsibility. And I think you know, everything else we do, hiring, product, customer service, whatever, everything is basically tied back to that objective, because we need to hit the next milestones and raise the next round. I think in our case, I'm even more focused on sales because I have a really great co-founder who just he takes more of the product side, and then I'm responsible for the commercial side. So you
Interesting.
know, I probably spend 80% of my time, 70% of my time focusing on the commercial side of the business.
I agree,
Nadia.
Nadia, and I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead,
No,
Tiago.
I think there's three main things that I do, and I think it's the people are. I think is one of the most important to keep like everyone. I don't think it's everyone happy. Like it's to keep a good team and to have everyone motivated and aligned with our objectives, and then also build the culture. I think we have an excellent culture in house. Our company really cares about everyone, and you know, everyone has the flexibility that they deserve, and everyone is really happy. We do regular surveys, and everyone is really happy working with us, and that makes me happy, and it makes me feel that my mission part of it is accomplished. And then the numbers are extremely important. I think revenue growth, like Bowen said, is one of the main drivers of the business. Like if we manage to build a bigger business, drive more revenue, create more products or services, deliver good quality on time, for us is really important. Then client portfolio is going to expand, revenue is going to grow, we can provide better conditions, better culture. I think everything is linked. I mean, I don't really have that structure that Bowen mentioned. Like we don't have investors, we have one sole shareholder. Things are a bit simpler on my side, but I still have objectives to meet and I still have my goals. So I think definitely it is important to drive the vision and the revenue growth. Mafalda, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Sorry,
My
Mafalda,
next
that was a.
question. No, my next question
I'm just
was
gonna
really.
take on your role. I promise.
I'm lazy, Nadia, so feel free to go ahead and do it. No, and my question was, besides revenue growth, do you also see other a bit more micro KPIs? Nadia, if you like, you can build on that.
The I think from a CEO now putting on the hat from a board perspective, where I usually sit on a few boards, definitely. So this was the reason behind the question that I asked to Tiago and Bowen, because first of all, that was one of my KPIs when I was a CEO. Running my own business, 80% of what I do is commercial, strategic alliances, getting out there, and the expectations from a board perspective, even though there is a big chunk of putting the house in order, and the house in order, like Tiago mentioned, is culture, is people, ensuring that we're running efficiently, and all the other operational KPIs, so to speak. The expectation at a board level is always growth. So there are shareholders, irrespective if there is one or a number. The complexity varies depending whether you're a private listed company or a public company. So depending on that, definitely the commercial growth of a company is a priority at a board level. So I agree definitely with both of them. I share that sentiment, and it resonates quite a lot that it's more macro than micro, that usually what we're after definitely at board level is how we make sure that now there is this growth in a sustainable manner. So whatever that growth and however the growth is defined.
Yeah. And what you say would be the main challenges of a CEO role, Nadia?
I mean, the first one, by all means, for me personally, was loneliness. That was the greatest challenge that I had to face. As we were discussing a little bit before we went online, I think I took on the role when I was pretty young. So I'm not sure. You're never ready for it. You're ready, you're not ready. It's for another episode. But I was very ambitious myself, so I wanted to go for it. And I think it's really the loneliest role that I've ever experienced. So at board level, I have colleagues, I have collaborators, I have the shareholders. So of course you're taking very responsible decisions, but yet again, you're not really on your own. When I was reporting and I was the head of the department and I had my team, and again, the CEO was the buck stopped with him. So you really, as a CEO, in my opinion, you're responsible for a number of stakeholders. It's the government, it's lawyers, shareholders, the board, your team. So really it's revolving around you. And yes, you have your team, but yet again, you have to take your own decisions. You have the one to be pushing. You have to be the one to be constantly motivating the staff, the people, the growth, the inspiration. So I think by far, hands down, that was my biggest challenge.
I actually don't feel that challenge. I know this is a common one that a lot of CEOs talk about.
That's because I'm bothering you all the time. It's impossible for you to feel lonely with me.
Yeah, but I also think it's because we have like I'm the CEO, but we have quite a flat hierarchy. So I think we, I very rarely make decisions where I just sort of overrule people directly. I think I'm always getting input and making sure people are bought in. But more importantly than that, then I have a great co-founder that I start the business with, and we see things like 50-50. I mean, I would never make a decision. Talk about being it's only at the top, but I haven't had to make a decision where I would overrule him. So all the decisions are made jointly, and I think it's good. Like I think that's also why they talk about in startups it's so important to have a co-founder, and the data shows that having a co-founder, companies are more successful than not. It's a lot harder as a sole founder of a company. So my experience, that hasn't been the biggest challenge.
And what's your biggest challenge then?
The biggest challenges for me, definitely over the last 2 years, has been navigating navigating the macroeconomic environment. Is COVID and now recession this year has been by far the most challenging thing, and making sure that you are taking this into account while not try not to think about it every minute of the day. I think is it's better to have a plan, we execute the plan. If it doesn't work out, we need to be prepared to change. But it's very easy to sit there stressing about it all the time, and I think that has been the most challenging thing in the last 2 years. And then on top of that, then just personally, I had 2 kids in the last 2 years, and I think that's been hard to balance. And finding the time for family and work, and I think everybody feels this in the adult life, but feeling like you letting people down, or you're not spending enough. You're doing like a bad job as a CEO, a bad job as a father, a bad job as a friend. I think at some point that gets quite tiring. I think everybody. I don't think that's unique for CEOs. I think that's adult life. That I know many of my friends feel the same way. But that is quite a toll. and making sure you're keeping your relationships healthy as well has been something that had to work on consciously.
Yeah, the work-life balance is important and it's challenging as well. But I do think that, at least for me, the most challenging parts are the things you cannot control, and that's like the the economic scenario, any regulatory changes. We work with iGaming. There are changes occurring often. Like, for example, a new market is opening up and that market gets regulated. And what we expected as demand for a particular market or language either drops or increases. And then, what you've planned doesn't really work. But we're ready to always implement changes. But I agree, we have a plan. Usually every year, we revise it every quarter, just in case something changed. Now it's even more important with inflation rates like at 10% in Europe. Our costs have been going higher. We haven't really reflected that with our clients. We're trying to honor our commitments as much as we can, but controlling that is not easy. But it's one of the main challenges I'm facing right now. Then also the technology, the way it's evolving, especially in our industry with language services. We've been evolving with it, but every day there's something new, and we need to keep up with it. Otherwise, we are obsolete in no time.
That's actually a great that you mentioned that, because my following question would be, Tiago, how do you keep updated with things that are important for your role as a CEO?
So when it comes to the iGaming, for example, because it's our main market, I get those selected newsletters every day on my inbox. It doesn't mean that
do you read them?
No, it doesn't mean that I read all. But I do select only a few, and I know where to get the most valuable information. Even if I get 10, I know that if I go to a particular one, it's a bit more reliable. They're not as insistent as the others that send newsletters. Some of them I just mark them as spam. They go straight to spam. They don't even go to my inbox, or I unsubscribe.
Harsh.
No, what can you do? But there are a few websites that I like to check every day. There's like Gambling Insider, for example, or SBC News. Two good portals for iGaming news. And then I always try to keep up with the trends when it comes to language service technology. There's a nice website as well, which is multilingual.com. They always try to keep up with the trends. And then I rely on my head of innovation. A guy from Colombia, amazing guy. You can go on our YouTube channel. You can see Jose freediving in Malta. It's a very nice video. And
I will after this.
Of course, so go on our All In Global YouTube channel and search for our head of innovation. There's a very nice video of him freediving and also relating freediving with his role. It's quite interesting. I rely on him as well to keep up with technology. Like, he's always on top of things. And that's the part where I link with what we've said before. Like, it frees my time and my mind from that bit. I know I can rely 100% that we are keeping up with trends. We're investing where we should be and developing what we should be developing with him. So yeah, then obviously social networks, keeping up with my connections on LinkedIn. They always share a few news from their own companies, their own businesses. I think it's also important.
Nice. How about you, Nadia? How do you get inspired?
So I get inspired by traveling. So finally, we're back on track on that front after 2 years. Even though I love Malta to bits, because obviously this is my country, this is where I live. However, it can get a little bit insular because it's small. So traveling and getting out and meeting people, I think it's extremely important. So this year was fun, so much fun, discovering uncharted territory. However, from a board perspective, definitely I think it's a responsibility as non-exec directors as well to bring that outside-in perspective. So I make sure that depending on the industries that I represent, I zone in a little bit more on the macro development of that particular industry. For example, whether it's IT, there's a lot going on. there's a lot going on each and every front, both from an employment perspective nowadays, from a culture perspective, from non-boarding and legislation. So even though obviously I'm not going to wear hats that they don't belong to me, so I don't claim that I'm a lawyer or an accountant or financial expert. However, you really need to have a good grasp. It's strategic growth and opportunities and mitigating the risks. So it's more industry specific content, and then I love podcasts. So there are a number of different podcasts I think that are available. Choosing the right ones are important. I think at the moment I've landed on the Harvard Business Review podcast, which I find them very good. 20 minutes, succinct, to the point, and you get the information that you need. I find those extremely interesting and inspiring.
I'll have a look at that one. Nice.
It's very good.
I like to listen to Freakonomics podcasts, but I'll get to that one. How about you, Bowen? How do you get updated with the latest trends?
I think the same thing. So a lot of maybe the classified, like a lot of reactive stuff. So newsletters, and I think LinkedIn is actually becoming like it's more and more becoming the main source that I'm getting things from. Actually, I think the newsletters get buried in your inbox. There's a handful that I read consistently, but I think LinkedIn, especially, I'm a little bit biased because we run a sales training company, so we also spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. And then more like proactively, I think it's Googling things and listening to summaries, reading a lot of books, but I actually don't read the books so much anymore. I just listen to summaries on Blinkist or read book summaries online. And I think that's where a lot of the, I guess that's more the proactive, like self-development stuff is more done through that way.
Yeah, makes sense. LinkedIn has, especially in our industry, sales, LinkedIn has a lot of, I take a lot of ideas as well to apply to my business development team from LinkedIn. Good. We are reaching the end of these episodes. So I will ask you the last question, which is always my favorite. I will show you an email that was written to a CEO. So I collect emails from different industries. That's what we do actually here at Wonderware Sales Training. And I'll show you an email, and then you will tell me your opinion if you relate to that or not. Feel free to be brutally honest, because companies and names were taken away. So let me share the email with you. I'm not going to give my opinion because I do that all the time. So this is your turn. Hi, Nadia, Tiago, Bowen. The CEOs we've been speaking with are facing a real challenge. They need to hit same targets with fewer resources. We've been helping leaders to get the most of their growth teams by providing insights on each rep's improvement areas and training them on those skills. By improving your team's win rate, you'll be able to unlock more revenue. Open to discussing this further. Best, John. Tiago, what's your take here?
Well, I get this type of emails all the time.
Yeah, I know. I figured.
Yeah, like even on LinkedIn as well, like those LinkedIn messages, they all look a bit the same, and it's pretty much like this. It's like I think the sales approach needs to be much more personal. Like I think there needs to be a link. We, at least at All In, we try not to cold email or cold call anyone. We try to build a relationship first. There's always a start to it. I understand that. And the start could be an email, but we always try to be present at conferences like every month, meet people, grow the network, instead of doing this type of emails. I tend not to reply to these emails even. Or if I do, it's because I've known the company or I know someone in the company, and I, out of respect, reply. Well, if I'm interested, I will be interested. But most of the times I'll say, well, thank you for your email, but no, thank you. But,
Please unsubscribe.
yeah, kind of. And then you kind of see it's an email that has been sent to 200 people, 300 by, MailChimp or any other email service. So, yeah, I don't know. I usually don't really reply to this type of commercial approach. I prefer if people have a more personal or try to build a relationship rather than going direct to the sale. That's at least that's what I think.
Yep.
What would you? What sort of message do you think would resonate with you here? Like, is it that email doesn't work at all, or how would you change this message to make it
No,
more?
I don't think the email could work. It also depends on the day, I guess. If I have more time for to read it, then I was like, oh, maybe this is interesting. If I'm in a day where I'm just back to back and I have to prioritize, it either gets unread and maybe I'll deal with it later, or I just delete it right away. And this might sound very cocky, but it's the way it is. Like we sometimes we do need to take this type of decisions of move forward, and
Yep.
I would prefer if it's a bit more personal approach. But that needs to exist. Maybe there's no connection before. Maybe we do need to have this type of email. Like I don't know.
Maybe tying with your company. I saw all in did
Yeah,
this.
maybe more exactly. Maybe more specific. Maybe instead of leaving it like out there, like oh, we've seen that this is a trend, or like oh, All in Global does this, and we can solve that problem, or we can help you specifically with that. Maybe that would work.
Yep. How about you, Nadia? What's your take here?
I receive a lot of emails, similar emails as well myself. So I find them very random sometimes, because if you read my profile, so I receive a lot on LinkedIn as well. It shows that I'm more specific. I'm more into niche provisions of what I do. So it doesn't really apply. However, I think that let me be fair. I think the start it's addressing a challenge, which could be attracting attention. I think what then especially the go-to action, what doesn't work for me. So we've been helping leaders to get the most of their growth themes. When you're into commercial, and that's my expertise, strategic growth and commercial, that's my background, you realize that most of the skills or some of the skills are not trained. When there's not a skill which you can really train to be able to assist leaders. There's much more than that to it. And as Tiago mentioned, of course, within a B2B concept and context, it's more based on relationships and how to nurture those relationships, how to build rapport, and so on and so forth. Of course, there could be strategies and methodologies that one could apply, but not everyone could be fit to do the growth that is expected out of leaders. So I think it's training skills for growth is very questionable in my books. So that kind of would definitely put me off. And then improving the team's win rate, you will be able to unlock, it seems like a template.
And without knowing anything about the team, because they don't know if our win rate is
Yes.
actually high or not. There's a bunch of assumptions here as well. I think personal approach, yes, and then kind of what you mentioned before, relate to the business. Like do a bit of digging before you send that email, so it doesn't look like you've sent the same email to 100 companies. I think it's important that I've seen that All in Global is exhibiting here. I've seen that you have this or that product. My experiences here and there. Maybe I can help you, in this or that challenge. Maybe that's more relatable. Maybe it's like, oh, wait, someone actually took the time to check what we do and how we're doing it, and maybe these people can help us. That could be a game changer on this type of emails.
It's very interesting because we've run already a couple of episodes, and marketing, sales, CEOs talk a lot about personalization and show me you made the research, and then product and engineering, they looked at the email, they're like, yes, we have this challenge or not. Yes, this is good. So it's so funny that, growth teams, are very focused on that. Whereas the more technical and product teams, they are like, okay, does this talk to my challenge? I don't care if you made the research. I care, does it solve something? And it's really interesting to see the trend here as well. Bon, we'd like to give your opinion. Would these resonate with you? What would you change?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm biased because we run a sales training company. We have, we have modules inside the product that teach people how to write great emails. But I think, what we push at Wonderway is definitely more personalization, and maybe shorter emails, a bit more, but like multiple emails to kind of build out. And I think that helps to build familiarity, and then also keeps each email simpler. Maybe something that I can share that I shared with our sales team the other day, is how you get through the noise in the first place. So, I think Tiago mentioned like you get dozens of these emails every day, and how do you get through? And I can actually just share my screen.
Some of them now come with emojis in the titles.
You see, so something. So if you look at my inbox here, I use this like important and unread section. It's a filter that comes off the shelf from Google, and it will automatically filter important emails out. And a lot of the sales emails I get filtered down into this everything else column, and I never even see them. So a lot of the transactional emails and sales emails end up down here. And if you're not personalizing, then it will land down here because the algorithm will notice that this is just a spammy email, so it'll go down there. So I think one thing is to make sure it lands like in the top of the inbox, making sure that people feel like it's relevant. As Tiago said, then it's not always about, a lot of it comes down to just getting people at the right time. Maybe they have a bit more time that day, or they were just discussing that problem in a meeting before, and you do have to just get lucky sometimes. But another big part is building relationships and making things relevant. When I look through LinkedIn, I get, I don't know how many of these a day. It's probably
100.
Yeah. Usually what I do when I look through here is I'm just looking for names of people that I know, and then I'll open those. And if I don't know who the people are, then I won't even open it, because there's just too many messages that are coming in like you don't know. But I think a big thing you can also do here is how do I stop sharing? There we go. A big thing you can do here is also making sure that people that create familiarity by doing multi-channel. So if someone pops up and I've got a message from LinkedIn, I've got an email, they've interacted with, they've sent me a connection request, interacted with a post. After a while, I start to get curious, and I'm like, who is this? Who is this Nadia?
Stalker.
Who is this Nadia person? And like, I think out of curiosity, then I'll often open that mail, because I'm sort of just tricked into thinking that I recognize that person, and then I'll take the time to read through. So of course not always, but I think that's a trick that you can use to get people's attention in the
I
first
think,
place.
Bowen, the title is a good pickup line, in the sense sometimes I receive these interesting titles when it's not the normal template title, and it's always sometimes a little bit innovative with a question or so on and so forth. I think that's already the first step, because then I'm intrigued and I click into it, sort of, to understand what's there, what's behind it. But then I think the content is very important, the call to action and the personalization, like Tiago mentioned, that you to be personalized depending a little bit to the industry, and to be relevant in the context, to the context that you're sending that email. I think then that's the second and the third step, because then people would be actually intrigued to reply.
Yeah, less emails is also more. Mafalda, actually, can I ask you a question?
Well, let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
No. What do you think about follow-up emails? Like, say that I got this email in my inbox, I didn't reply, then should I get a follow-up? Then how many follow-ups?
So you asking someone that if you ask him when should I stop following up, I say until they call the police. So what do you think my answer is? So basically I say, literature says 14 touch points until you give up, more or less. It doesn't mean there are 14 emails, right? It can be LinkedIn messages, calls, one email there, one commenting, one visiting on the profile. Like 14 touch points can be soft touch points and non so soft. By emails, I like 5 emails of following up, but each email should have some value in it, not like, hey,
following up on this. Hey,
Yeah, following up, right? Hey, are you there? Like, you know what I mean?
You see my
So
email. Hi
so
again.
basically, exactly. So basically, what I recommend to my teams, because I also train them, is trying different angles, trying different challenges. Maybe the first didn't resonate. Let's try the second, like another challenge. For example, sending an invitation for a webinar that could be useful for the person, not like randomly, right? So there are ways to follow up without being less annoying.
Totally.
So
Like without being the feeling as someone is poking at you all the time, like, hey, it's like, okay, just hold on a second. Again.
Even though, look, if there are people listening to this and I was the one prospecting them a couple of years ago, maybe they have a different opinion about my way of prospect, but you know, let's leave subjectivity to life where it belongs.
Yeah, but we see this. I mean, we see that the response rates go up as you go on, because a lot of the time people are like, "Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting
I'll
point,"
reply later.
but they don't action it right away, and then it falls out
Yeah.
of their mind, and you know, maybe on the fourth, fifth time, they're like, "Okay, I do need to do something about this." Like,
And
does
it
happen.
happens
It
to
does
me as
happen.
well.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm interested. I even put a star on it, and then life happens. I forgot, and the person
True.
follow up with me, and I'm like, oh, and I even say thanks for following up. Da 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 da. Right. So yes,
But like
I
you're
like
mentioning, I
follow-ups.
think there needs to be tact with the follow-ups as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
once it's when it's done nicely, one is more open to listen a bit more.
And also like understanding the timing. So for example, and I tell this to all my team, when you receive an out of office email, and let's say the last day of vacation of this person is the 15th, do not follow up on the 16th, because this person won't be happy to speak with you on the first day after 2 weeks in a paradisiac island or something, you know. So also see the timing of your follow-ups. That's how I see
Totally.
it as well.
Totally.
I think at the end of the day, a lot of this is about the relationship building you mentioned, Tiago. So like, it's very difficult in one email to build a relationship. I mean, you can't be chatty, personalized, specific to the business, put your value proposition forward, create a lasting friendship all in one email. But if you can do it across multiple touch points, then you are building familiarity, hopefully value across multiple times, and then like demonstrating your value, and then that familiarity is like an artificial way of building that relationship. Now, of course, you run the risk of becoming annoying for some people, but the reality is that this is like still the best way to grow the business. It's very hard to just rely on referrals and relationship business. I think you can't. It's it's all about being able to grow in a consistent, predictable way, and this is the best approach that's on the market still.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good. We are way above our time, so thank you so much
for
spending the time chatting with me. I'm sure that after this session, everyone understood much better what a CEO does. So thank you so much, Tiago, Boan, Nadia. I will see you around on LinkedIn, Nadia and Tiago, and Boan, I'll see you on Slack. So thank you again, and I'll see you around.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Likewise.